Something hit me an hour or so ago. Um, and let me give you a background on this. Uh, there was a case in San Jose, California, where um, one cop opened fired on the absolute wrong person. There was a fight in a taqueria. The guy who instigated the fight pulled a weapon. Uh, he got it taken away from him. Okay. So when the cops showed up, the guy was like, no, 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 this is, it's not me. It's not me. Here's the hand. Here's the gun. I'm going to put it down. All good. We got the guy pinned down inside. One cop just walks up and puts 6 bullets through. 6 bullets into the witness who stopped the guy from shooting up a taqueria. They didn't shoot the suspect. They shot the witness. Okay. Well, it went to a jury trial. The tort. The guy who was wrongfully shot by the San Jose PD. Now, the clue was only one cop shot. There was like 6 cops there. One cop shot. Nobody else squeezed the trigger. So right then and there, you've only got two situations. One, you literally have a hidden threat only one person could see. And that's possible, but that's not what happened here. Because even the other officers are like, what the fuck are you doing? Okay. So this one cop shoots the guy. And then it's found out, I don't know, days or weeks later, that the cop who wrongfully shot the witness starts talking racist smack about the guy he shot, even though he wasn't the suspect of any crime and he has no criminal history. Dare carry a gun on my beat? What do you think this is? The Wild Wild West? Not here, bitch. Oh, okay. 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 Well, the jury heard that. That made it to the jury. When the jury foreman handed the settlement part of the jury decisions, because remember you got to go through multiple phases in a tort trial, a civil trial. But you got the, is it a tort? Is it actionable? Yes or no? And then how much compensation is deserved? And then how much punitive damage? So because there's the actual compensation part. That's the money that was actually lost, like your lost wages, your hospital bills, whatever. Whether you're in a traffic accident or cop wrongfully shot you, it's the same thing. Then you have the punitive damage. When they did something egregiously wrong, then the jury can award punitive damages to basically influence the losing party of the tort from ever doing it again. So jury gets all the information. They go, yep, it's the fault of San Jose PD and the fault of that officer. Jury foreman hands the envelope to the judge. Judge reads it and goes, what's the M for? The jury foreman instantly goes, millions, Your Honor. Judge goes, oh. Then he tells the city of San Jose they just lost $8 million for a single bad shoot. $8 million. There seems to be a lot of law enforcement shootings lately. Did the guy survive? Yes, he survived. That's why he was able to sue. It was him suing, not his family. He did survive. And the fortunate news is, like 15 years ago, we had a lot of shootings. Shootings were out of control in this neck of the woods. We finally got them calmed down. The mistake we made is we gave them tanks and told them they were soldiers. Then they just started shooting everybody. We had our apartment gunned down a mentally ill guy in the middle of Walmart. It went through 3 prosecutors. They dropped charges. They're not going to do anything to him. It was a voluntary manslaughter with a badge. But fortunately, we've corrected this problem, at least in this neck of the woods. We've really curtailed the shootings. Fortunately, I think it was early last year, one of the marijuana stores, cannabis stores, got burgled, and the guy ran for his car, immediately reached in the console for a gun, and you see the gun come up clear as day. There's a gun in this one. And I actually joked to my neighbor. I go, you see, they actually shot somebody with a gun this time. Because that was the biggest problem with all the lot of law enforcement shootings is they were shooting people they didn't have a reason to shoot. And I've said this before. I'll go back to Chief McNamara, also San Jose police. He was the old police chief before he went to the Hoover Institute at Stanford. And he says, anytime you shoot an unarmed civilian, you have a problem. Full stop. Full stop. Okay. That's when San Jose was one of the best police departments in the world. They ranked up there with Berlin, um, Mainz, West Germany, or Tokyo, Japan. They were one of the best police departments in the world. They're not that anymore. Far from it. Okay. So yeah, you're right. There has been a lot of law enforcement shootings in our memories of recent times. Many of those shootings were inappropriate. There were wrongful uses of force. You did not need to go down that way. And I found the suspect, the cop who shot the guy in the taqueria, shot the wrong guy, the witness in the taqueria in San Jose. His Wild Wild West comment was weird because that's what you all thought when we gave you the tanks. You thought we didn't live in cities anymore. We lived either in the Wild Wild West or in a war zone. And you guys could just shoot up any person, any vehicle, any house. A car bumps into you in a pursuit, just empty the magazine out the window of your patrol car. If most of the bullets go into an apartment building where children are sleeping, that made them a war hero in their mind. That actually happened. So yeah, there's been a lot of shootings, and that's going to be in the memories of the jury members when Renee Good um, and Alex, the ICU nurse, and there's a third guy that wasn't there a third guy? I'm blanking right now. There's a third guy. He was a brown dude. They whacked. I'm just drawing a blank. Sorry, I don't mean to exclude all the victims, but when all these victims and their families go to court, and not just for the wrongful shootings, you've got wrongful arrests, you've got abusive arrest tactics, you have clear aggravated assaults with a weapon, smashing the tear gas canister into somebody's face. That's not what a tear gas canister is for. Okay. There was absolutely no reason, and I've seen this several times, and none of the times I've seen these videos where they start smashing people in the face with a tear gas canister, that is uh, that is specifically against the department I work for, its internal policies on use of force. Unless there was an exigent circumstance, we weren't even allowed to hit people with our flashlights. It was baton, fists, and kicks only, and that's how you delivered force. Now, unfortunately, a guy tried to murder me one night, and yeah, I have to admit, I ended up in an IA investigation because he got his ass whipped with flashlights. I didn't have time to go for my baton, so yeah, we beat the ever loving hell out of them with flashlights. And I went and had to go testify in an IA to my lieutenants and captains that yes, I violated policy because it was an exigent circumstance. The third guy was shot in the leg between Good and this one. Okay, thank you, Alice. Does anybody remember his name? If you do, just start in the comments. The exigent circumstances was he went like this and said, "I got a gun." So I just grabbed him, pulled off a rapid shot, went by his ear, and then I realized, holy shit, he doesn't have a gun. And then he put his hand back in his waistband. I'm going, I can't shoot you because you don't have a gun in your hand. I locked my gun back in my holster, hit him on my left hand, the flashlight upside his head as hard as I could. I switched hands to my strong hand, and then both of us got on top of him. And yeah, we did a number on him till he didn't move. And I'm not bragging. This isn't like a war story like, oh, I'm happy this happened. No, this was a serious incident with a burglary in progress. Julio Cesar Sosa Celis. Thank you very much, Alex. Thank you for the name. I want to make sure I included everybody's name that have been victims here. I'm sorry I blanked on his name. Silas. Okay, very good. Thank you. Julio Cesar, Renee, and Alex. That's the victims here. So yeah, I'm not like proud of this. The whole situation gave me nightmares. Because I literally thought the guy had the drop on me. He was going to kill me. And he was a convicted statutory rapist and a multiple residential and commercial burglar with a long criminal past, a serial felon. Okay. So if I saw something that was an exigent circumstance and it would justify a regular tactic, I would thoroughly explain that to you. I didn't see anything like that. Again, I'm a certified instructor in impact weapons. I trained fellow Army MPs undercover how to do automatic weapon entries and close quarter battle to do search warrants and go after targets. Okay, if I saw anything in my professional experience that was said, wait a minute, maybe this is one of those weird situations where the ugly thing may have been the right thing to do or was the only thing they could do, right? I'm not seeing that in any of these videos. So you've got shooting and wounding people, Mr. Julio Cesar Sosa Celis, shot. You got two people shot and killed. You've got children being detained. You've children being used as bait. If we ever took a child and try to control the child as a threat or a coercion to get somebody to come out of a house because we didn't have a search warrant, oh my God. One of my friends at the DA's office, she was one of the greatest attorneys in my day, Charlie. She was her first name, her nickname. Charlie was awesome. That was a great attorney, great DA, and honest as AF as you can get. Honest, honest, honest. Okay. If a bad cop did a bad thing, she'd do you. And we all knew it. We all knew it. We didn't screw with Charlie. Um, and ethical too. Like she got her and I got subpoenaed to the same murder case where obviously the defense doesn't want to prosecute her or a cop on a murder case, right? Um, and she's standing next to me, and the DA sees both of us at the jury selection. And they go, "What the hell are you two doing here?" And I'm going like, "I got subpoenaed as a juror, dude." Because he saw me and he goes, "This is a PG case. Did you help on this one?" Our town next door, and I'm like, "No, I got subpoenaed as a juror." So did the DA. So and she goes like, um, "I literally cannot be associated with this case because I know investigators like they're my neighbors in South County. Like I can't be involved with this ethically." And the judge was like, "Get out of here." And then the ADA raised his hand. He goes, "Oh, that's Officer so and so. I'm sure the defense doesn't want a licensed post peace officer on the jury for their client." And the two defense attorneys look at me and go, and they were the judge like, "Goodbye." So when you look at all the violations, you look at the constitutional rights violations, both at the state level and at the federal level. Okay. You have a mountain of risk and liability building up in the federal agencies. Now, when they go to court, they're not going to win $8 million. The wife of Renee Good, I'm sure some pretty darn good law firms want to represent her. And I bet you there's a couple of activist law firms that will do it at a very, very low cost, maybe even pro bono. She ain't going to get $8 million. She's going to get a lot more than $8 million. The family of the ICU VA nurse, that's the one that kills me. That's the second time. When I first started the video, I started crying. I was so upset. It was just so wrong. It was just so brutal and so unnecessary. Um, if I was called as an expert witness for the defense and these torts, um, federal agents would probably put death threats out on me because I could pick apart what they did 6 ways from Sunday and say, nope, that was wrong. That was wrong. That was wrong. That was wrong. I mean, if you went frame by frame, you can see multiple errors in every video. Like, what did the agent think he was doing just by randomly shoving people down into a snowbank? Was that proper crowd control? No, that was panic. The whole thing was panic. Are you allowed to take that crowd tear gas canister, shove it directly in someone's face this close, and eject the material you're not supposed to according to the written instructions that come with the product? You're not supposed to eject it unless you're 5 to 10 meters away, and you're going 3 inches or closer to their face and emptying it into their nose and eyes? Okay? That's the same problem when they shoot those 40 millimeter launchers and they hit people in the head. That one kid's blind. They blinded a kid during the Black Lives Matters down in the South Bay. Same thing, 40 millimeter launcher. The first thing the tort defense attorneys brought into court was, here's the manual for that device. This is what they say not to do with it. You did everything you weren't supposed to do with it. Okay. Alice says Border Patrol posted on Facebook the nurse was just a justified shoot because one of the agents heard another agent yell there was a gun. But there were more than 2 seconds count between the gun was retrieved before the next escalation case. The incompetent fuckers should have yelled gun retrieved or whatever. We got the hell words there. Patrol should have had enough time to take 6 steps away. Okay. I see where you're going with this. I don't see that exactly the same problem. The problem is Minnesota is a open carry state. Most states in the United States now, open carry and CCWs are very, very legal. Okay. Um, Not everywhere where I work, but like I talked about this yesterday, like the farmers and the ranchers, they'd stop at the gas station. They'd have their revolver on their hip because, they have a farm. They need to keep the vermin and the predators away from their animals. They're just stopping at the gas station because they need a fuel in between the store and stuff, and they just have their gun on their belt. I didn't pull over at the gas station, 76 gas station. He's got a gun. No. This is America. Everybody's got a fucking gun. So you yelled gun. Okay. That's just a warning. If someone yells gun and you just start shooting and you don't see the threat yourself, you're wrong. The rules we had on my teams in the Army and when I worked for the civilian police department, if you yourself do not see the threat, you are not allowed to shoot. And furthermore, you are responsible for every single bullet that comes out of the barrel. So they yelled gun. Okay, that's a warning. I've yelled gun. I've yelled knife. Okay, didn't have to shoot anybody. Just warn him. Hey, guy's got a gun in his belt. That means you torque his wrist a little harder, you get him in handcuffs quicker, and you disarm him with that gun. Hell, we didn't even shoot the guy that tried to shoot one of my best friends in the department. Stab one of my best friends. He literally had the knife in his hand, and the other officer's got both his hands on his wrist, like double clutched, and he's got his knee in his chest, and he's trying to keep the thing in his hand. He said, "Will you help me? I don't want to shoot him." So I just walked over and just boot stomped his hand until he let go of the knife, and then we rolled him over, and put him in handcuffs. Today, they would have just executed that guy. Especially ICE. They just execute the guy. And you see it time and time again. I talked about this one, what was his name? Castillo, the cafeteria cook, the mixed race dude, I think he was. He gets pulled over for the 94th time because I guess he's the only robbery suspect in the county. And he openly tells the officer, "Hey, I got a CCW. Here's my permit. Don't go for your gun." Legal gun owner shot dead. Of course, nothing happened to him. Nothing happened to the cop, shot him dead. Because whether they shoot you or they just ignore the victims like in Uvalde and let them die, we don't do anything to the cops. That's absolutely mind-boggling to me. You would not get away with that shit in my day. You definitely would not get that away with that shit in Army CID. Mm-mm. If you better pray that when you shot somebody, they desperately deserved it. Like we had so few officer-involved shootings because we knew how much trouble we would be in if we shot the wrong person. And it's not like we weren't heavily armed. Depending where I was, I carried an MP5 fully selector switch, 3-round burst, fully automatic, 9mm submachine gun, um, shotguns, M16A2s, also capable of firing on fully automatic. It wasn't like we didn't carry heavy firepower. With the people we were up against, yeah, we carried heavy firepower all the time. Like the DEA wouldn't do a search warrant without MP5s, fully automatic MP5s. The only thing we told them is they can't run silencers because if they start shooting, we want to be able to hear it. Suppressors are fine because I know what they sound like, but you can't use silencers. You got to we told them they had to take them off. Um, so yeah, we had heavy firepower. We dealt with dangerous people all the time. Um, and we almost never had officer-involved shootings. Why? Because in the Army, you fuck it up, you're going to go to the stockade as your best choice. You fuck it up real bad, um, you're going to go to Leavenworth. You're going to go to military prison. And I've known all levels of police in the Army. I've known people who've gotten involved in officer-involved shootings in the Army. But I mean, black and white textbook case of a good shoot. Because we wouldn't pull the trigger unless it was that. Because it's not, you're going to be, if you do it in the Army, you're going to be answering to everybody. You're going to be answering to your team chief, the senior warrant officer, your special agent in charge of your team. Then you're going to be answering to the special agent in charge of the office. Then you're going to be answering to the regional commander. Then you're going to be answering to JAG. Then you're going to be answering to the base commander, a brigadier or major general. Okay. That's why telling these frickin' idiots, JD Vance did this, telling these frickin' idiots they have absolute immunity. Nobody has absolute immunity. That was a lie, a purposeful lie to tell them to go out and start shooting people because there will be no consequences if you do it wrong. And just like locally here, cops shoot somebody, like the cannabis store burglary that turned into a robbery. Dude, clear as fucking day, you grabbed a 357 nickel revolver and try to pull it on a cop, and the cop shot you in the stomach. Now, two good praises. One, there was a gun. That was unusual for these guys. Okay. And two, he shot him once. The guy dropped the gun, fell over, and started screaming, "You shot me! You shot me!" And it was a devastating hit. He got shot in the upper stomach, went right through his back. The guy was fucked up. But he didn't spray and pray, which was another like, oh my God, great. Very good. You're learning. You're learning from your mistakes of the past. Because when you shoot one guy that actually has a gun, you shoot him one time in the stomach, he falls over, he drops the gun, and you just stop. That's beautiful compared to the idiot in the pursuit where the guy bumped his bumper on a cul-de-sac. He pulled out his service pistol and dropped 16 rounds downrange, only hitting the car like 3 or 4 times. Most of the bullets went into the yards and the apartment buildings behind the target. That was awful. That was and awfully stupid. Okay. But using all this like post 9/11 over militarization stuff that happened, all over the place, especially here. I followed up a lot about the lawsuits that occurred. Okay. And over time, these lawsuits have been getting more and more and more expensive for munis, sheriff's department, states, and the federal government. $8 million for a guy who was only wounded. That's a record in that county. Maybe a record for the state. Okay. So the cost of bad behaviors, misconducts, in potentially criminal actions by uniformed personnel is getting massively more expensive for taxpayers. Which brings me to my point. With the big, beautiful bill, who pays taxes? Not Donald Trump, not Elon Musk, not Larry and David Ellison, not Mark Andreessen, not Mark Zuckerberg, not Howard Lutnick, not anybody in the billionaire class, especially anybody who's super big billionaire in Trump's orbit. They don't pay taxes, and you made sure of that in the big, beautiful bill. The tax burden is you and me in the middle class. So when hundreds, if not thousands of lawsuits, which are coming against the federal government, ICE, Border Patrol, Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, the FBI, everybody's going to get fucking sued 6 ways from Sunday. Who has to pay the bill? Anybody want to take a guess? I can tell you who it's not going to be. The people making the decisions. Especially the corrupt degenerate. That's the pedo in chief, running his little street gang militia as a political party and now as a violent police force. It's called passing the buck. Oh, absolutely. And where did they learn to pass the big buck? The bank bailouts. The bank bailouts was about protecting assets and the wealth of the ultra wealthy. So they handed a $12 trillion bill, Barney Frank and Ron Paul's number, by the way. $12 trillion came out of your and I's asses, out of our kids' future, out of our healthcare, our education, our roads, our streets, our highways, our dams, our bridges, renewable energy products. That all money came out of that to make sure the assets of the wealthy were protected from the wealthy people's own crimes. And they learned how to pass not the little buck, not like the tax code. Oh, we're going to pass on another, $600-700 billion to the middle class. No, they passed $12 trillion to the middle class, obliterated our savings for what, 12, 13 years? So, yeah. So when Renee Good's wife sues and wins, and she will, there's going to be a list of use of force experts, retired cops, lawyers, PhD criminologists who are literally going to look at those videos and say, wrong, 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 that's wrong, this wrong, the other thing is wrong, and this sucks too. And the jury is going to be processing all of that and looking at all the damage they did. Even though I'll be paying for it, yeah. I want Good and Preeti's families to file a civil lawsuit for libel too. Just be the only time Fam's face gets to be rubbed in her own crap. Totally agree. Totally agree. 100% agree. Their first response is committing libel. If you knew that this is a giant terrorist network and he was the leader of the Antifa terrorists, you found him by pushing a woman into a snowbank and then pepper spraying him, and that's how you found the terrorist? That doesn't even make any fucking sense. I mean, that's a pretty ignorant cover up they're pulling. Christine Noem calling Good a terrorist because she was driving an SUV making an illegal U-turn. That's terrorism? She disrespected some goon squad's authority, some Eric Cartman grade Goombas? And that's terrorism? This close playing bitch doesn't know what the fuck she is talking about. Okay? I went after a terrorist in Germany. Several times. Terrorists. One terrorist we were looking for was a German terrorist from the RRF who suckered an army soldier out of a bar, took him out the woods because he thought he was going to have a fun time with this very pretty German girl. She met her comrades in the woods and they put a gun to his head and killed him for his ID card. The next morning, using his ID card, someone planted a bomb at Rhein-Main Airport. That's terrorism. Making a U-turn, taking out your cell phone camera and making a video, that is not fucking terrorism at any definition. It's just lying. It's lying for the nationalist cause. Now you look at all these detainees, because they're not deporting anybody. They're detaining everybody. Why? Because dear leader porn star Humper has a bunch of campaign donors on the dole. Pam Bondi and Kristi Noem have close friends to pay off, giving them jobs and contracts. They're building cells at detention centers that are allegedly deportation centers that are sections that are specifically for U.S. citizens. Why would a U.S. citizen go to a deportation center? Are you going to start force exile of U.S. citizens? Everybody and their brother's got a lawsuit against the government. Unless you're I forget the percentage I'll tell, it's really super freaking low. Like 91%, this was from Cato, conservative Cato, 91% of the people that have been picked up by ICE and Border Patrol have no criminal record whatsoever. So 91% of the people are being detained for something they didn't say they were going to do. Okay. Then they're putting in children in harm's way. They're putting the elderly in harm's way. Okay. This is just an avalanche of torts. This is going to cost tens of billions of dollars when it's all said and done, between court times and lawyers and experts and tort settlement costs and yada, yada, yada. This is literally going to be in the billions. How much of the billions is Elon Musk going to pay? Zero. How much of those tort billion settlements is Howard Lutnick going to pay? Or Larry Ellison going to pay? Or Mark Andreessen going to pay? Zero. Zero. And they knew this when they wrote Project 2025. Because the first thing in Project 2025 was cut all the taxes and liability away from the wealthy. Second thing, declare war on the United States and throw out the Constitution. They did this with complete aforethought. And when that aforethought gets documented in courts, all it has to do is become a finding of fact in one federal district court, and that finding of fact can be used across all the torts. Once we knew you did this with a forethought, this was your plan, this is what you intended to do, you made preparations to do this in this illegal, unconstitutional manner, all bets are off. The juries and the judges are going to go fucking mental. And they're going to be handing down tort settlements that are going to look like fucking Mega Millions payments. Now, Congress is immediately going to try to intervene, by the way. They're going to try to limit the lawsuits. Like people don't realize if you sue a wealthy company or a wealthy person, in about a third of the states now, you have no chance of collecting your settlements beyond a paltry maximum limit. Like some states is as low as $300,000. $300,000 if somebody like a sheriff's deputy with no warrant went into your home, took an axe to your kids, raped your wife, and hung you upside down in the yard, and then left and didn't tell anybody, and then wrote a false police report calling you all terrorists. It's limited to $300,000 in punitive damage. That's it. You cannot get more. So expect to see that at the federal level. They say, "Oh, if you get hurt, you can only have a couple $100,000." Which is, by the way, taking away the right to a jury and a right to a jury to determine the outcome of a tort. That's in the Constitution too. Okay, you have the right to have your cases heard by a jury of your peers, both criminally and civilly. Forbes reported that dear leader porn star Humper has added 2.5 trillion to the national debt in 2025. New York Times says he has doubled his personal wealth in that time. Yes, all true. And then he tells you, then he bullshits you. Okay, and his red hat rubes eat it up. Oh, I'm donating my presidential salary. Aren't I a hero? Your presidential salary for 4 years is only $1.2 million. The bill for your ballroom is $400 million now. Your Bitcoin made you $1 billion. You're somehow the new Jesus Christ because you gave up $400,000 out of 1.15 billion? Well, I've already told you guys, he's an idiot. He can't read. He can't do math. He doesn't understand business. He doesn't understand economics. Okay. He is just the useful idiot other people are marionetting. Ross Fott, Steve Bannon, Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is the de facto president right now. It's not Donald Trump. They just shoved Donald Trump out there. No, stroke face, hand falling apart. I mean, his whole hand is just decaying now. It's the size of a fucking cantaloupe. And it's just decaying. Oh, woke is bad. Tariffs. Surrender Ukraine. China's no longer a threat. Did you guys read that? Did you guys read that? The National Defense Strategy Report for this year? Since Bubba Clinton, we're 3 minutes from China, a war with China every fucking day. China. First campaign, first term of dear leader porn star Humper. China is the greatest threat to America has ever seen. As of this week, there is no China threat whatsoever after TikTok got handed to the Ellisons. Now, there is no threat by China. All DOD and DHS and FBI resources will be pointed at Main Street now in the Caribbean. In Greenland. But I don't think he wants to go for that anymore because Europe finally stood up to him. They should have called him a big bumbling crying baby and told him to shut the fuck up. He was a pariah though. Nobody would sit with him this time. Nobody would talk to him. Nobody would sit him. They're just moving around him like he doesn't exist. Like, why the fuck would you engage with that guy if you were Macron or Havel? Okay. He literally looks at you, denigrates you as a hobby, as a flex, and then tries to extort something from you. I'm waiting for MAGA's next to snap by doing the about face on the Chinese. Yeah. China. 10 years. China. Oh, we have to take TikTok away from the Chinese. It's an existential threat to our kids. Because China. Defense Strategy Report this week. The only threat, according to the National Defense Strategy Report, is you and me. That's their threat now. Their distraction, this did it again, they're going to blow up more boats. We have naval gear and personnel that cost us $1/3 trillion floating in the Atlantic, and we're shooting boats with a couple of kilos of cocaine on it, and the boat is probably worth less than $20,000, and we're shooting it with a $3 million missile. It's like Billy Bob Thornton as the Marine in Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. Could somebody tell me the blue book value of a 1993 Toyota pickup? About $1,500, sir. Can somebody fucking tell me how much an AT-4 missile cost? About $190,000. Well, good. Now you guys know the numbers. One of the Marines took an AT-4 and blew up a little tiny truck with it. That's what we're doing in the Caribbean. We're sending billion-dollar weapon systems against a boat that can't even make it to Cuba without refueling 15 times. Never mind get to Houston or the Mississippi River or Key West or whatever else they're worrying about doing. And the fact is, they can't solve a market with a war. Because as soon as you start the war, I told you this, you get a black market. What the fuck do you think the MP's jobs are in the rear echelon? One of the things we do, especially MPI, the detectives, is we go after black marketeers. Because if you start a war on Tuesday, you get a black market on Wednesday. I think I wrote this before. It's like, am I the only guy to watch The Third Man? The classic Orson Welles post-war in Austria movie where he's a black marketeer. Am I the only one to watch that movie? It's one of the greatest movies ever made. Cotton is in it. He's amazing. He's in a bunch of those old movies of those era. He's amazing. But yeah, when not a lawsuit, not a dozen lawsuits, not 100 lawsuits, but hundreds to thousands of lawsuits start getting filed all over the country. The taxpayer is going to not only have to pay for ICE, which has the largest budget for any police agency in the fucking world right now. They have more money than the Israeli army. So we have to pay for that crap, which is not law enforcement. Then we pay for the crap they're doing now. Because again, they don't pay any taxes. Then we have to pay for the aftermath as well. We had to give fucking checks to the bankers so they could write their own bonus checks after they crashed the global economy. And then we took a 0.00002 percentage rate for 13 fucking years in our savings. It's one thing to get fucked. It's another thing to get spit roasted. So yeah, start thinking about that. When I'm saying like we have to educate our friends, families, and neighbors. We got to make sure everybody's out there to vote and they know the real issues the real way, not the Fox News way, not the commie way. When we listen to policy experts, what do they tell us about the policy? If you think RFK Jr. is an expert on medical policy, you're a fucking idiot. He's a heroin addict and a steroid abuser with mental problems. You're going to pay for that too. Just in the liabilities downstream from these policies, billions upon billions upon billions of dollars. Now, Red Hat Rubes living in rural Kansas. Are you okay with the federal government defunding your local hospital, the only hospital you have in your rural county, so they can afford to pay for the abuses and the unconstitutionality of rogue, untrained, belligerent shitheads pretending to be federal agents? Because ICE doesn't amount to anything but a political hit squad at this moment. There's no other point to ICE. Okay, I told you guys this in a video a couple of times ago. Yeah, we call INS every once in a while, call Border Patrol. Okay, you do something really stupid and you shouldn't be here. I mean, a bar fight, a drunken public, we'll let it go. Not a big deal. You do something felony stupid. Hey, INS, we got one for you, buddy. Let's go. But it wasn't this shit. I mean, all that happened and the rare occasions we called INS is one of the Border Patrol SUVs would show up. Usually a Spanish speaking officer got out. He goes, "Where's the prisoner?" I go, "Yeah, you got to store your gun in the lockbox. Come on, we'll go get you introduced and we'll get a transport ready." Sign some paperwork. We hand them over to Border Patrol, shake hands. They safely get put back to the SUV. They get driven to the regional site. They're transported on the bus the next day to the border. They spend a couple of days at the border going through their hearings, seeing a judge to make sure you get the final deportation order or you get a stay because of an exigent circumstance. And the whole thing's done in like, I don't know, less than a business week without any violence, by the way. But this is what's going to screw the taxpayer in the upcoming massive lawsuits. They didn't follow policy. They didn't follow procedure. They knowingly violated the law. They threw out the Constitution. And like you said, MAGA's next are going to snap about the Chinese. They're also going to snap about the fact is several House members, DHS, FBI, Border Patrol, ICE, Kristi Noem, and Kash Patel have all said there's no more Second Amendment. If they are doing law enforcement operations, which they said this is a permanent thing, if they have presence, there is no Second Amendment. They said if you exercise your First Amendment rights, you lose your Second Amendment rights. Kash Patel said that today. You have no business showing up with a 9mm with multiple magazines to a riot. Wasn't a riot. It was a protest. There's no law that says the federal agents can stop open carry laws at the state level. Concealed weapon permits that have been lawfully issued by the sheriff? Yes, Rittenhouse did. Yes. Well, what gun rights are going to quickly boil down to? If Stephen Miller and Benny Johnson want to blow you, you can have a gun. So Kyle Rittenhouse will always have a gun. Any twink they use as their props, they can have a gun. Nobody else will. Yeah, MAGA, how you doing with that today? Yeah, but Rittenhouse is their hero. He's not a hero. He's an idiot. One, he was an illegal child soldier. It was illegal at his age to carry that assault weapon in that state. It was also child neglect and child abuse by his mother to arm a child with an illegal weapon and drop him off at a riot. Mom should have been charged with child endangerment, child abuse, murder, probably voluntary manslaughter, and assault with a deadly weapon. Mom should be in prison right now. Rittenhouse himself should have served time for carrying an illegal weapon in that state. It's not illegal for an adult to have it in that state. It was illegal for him to have it at that age. And the fact that they cheer on a child soldier with a carbine, and then you got the balls to complain about what happens in Africa with the warlords or Afghanistan with the warlords. Like they all love bringing up the story about the weirdos that are the Afghan warlords. What is different between the Afghan warlords and MAGA? They're heavily armed. They're racist. They're misogynists. They're evil. They're criminals. They arm children. They disrespect women. They use child soldiers. And they rape children. The Pashtun boys. Yes, Alice, yes, that's their excuse. We are the good cracker. They're the bad brown person. Even though Whitey is doing the same thing here. Oh, the warlords of Afghanistan have these little boy parties and they rape the little boys. How is that better than Epstein Island? Hypocrite. Now, where it's gonna get tremendously expensive, like insane expensive for the taxpayers once these torts start hitting for everybody wrongfully detained, abused, smashed in the face with a tear gas canister, kicked in the teeth when they're already restrained. You want to avoid headshots at all possible. And I'm not talking like the reflexive things. Like I've seen people just like, rabbit punch a guy because they just turn around and like shiv them with an elbow in a bar fight. And I've just seen cops reacting like bam. Next guy's laid out on the floor. Okay. That's just reflexive. Okay. You don't pick up a beer bottle off the bar in the bar fight as a cop and smash it into the guy's head, into the guy's face. No, you don't punch him. And when he goes down, you just walk up and start kicking him in the face. No, you had a natural reaction to protect yourself because you got massively hit in the face. Okay, but you don't follow it up with abuse. But you look at all these videos, every one of those videos are ending up in court. Every one of these fake little memos they're writing, all that shit is going to come out in the legal battles. They're going to get all the database entries of these ICE agents and all the stupid shit they put in the database. And once they build the fact that this was planned, executed, and deployed to violate the Constitution at its essence, juries are going to fucking lose it. No, 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 nut shots. That's going to get expensive, Bristol. The groin is off limits. Men and women don't hit them in the groin, especially with a weapon or your boot, because you can seriously hurt somebody with a groin shot. Unless it's an absolutely life or death, like you're literally trying to get the gun out of the hand and the gun's already gone off once, and you just want to do something before you have to shoot, maybe. But 99.99% of the time, yeah, you no nut shots, no nut grabbing. Okay, you can seriously injured somebody by doing that. A lady whose husband disappeared in custody finally found him in a hospital with traumatic brain injury. How many times they've killed that we don't know yet? That's the problem. We don't know because there's no oversight, and that's what I'm talking about just a second ago, Alice. Once they show that you did this with no concern for common good practice, best practices, you violated normal police training in this country and in most industrialized countries. You violated your own rules and procedures, which they openly do. Like I have in a PDF somewhere here on my desktop. I have a multi-screen setup here, but somewhere on my desktop, I've got the whole use of force policy from DHS. The You can watch any 3 videos and find 10 violations. So when we talk to people and we start to get them, encourage them to vote, let them know this story. First thing they did was pass a term permanent tax cut for themselves. Then they created liability from the taxpayer because they knew the taxpayer wasn't them. And then they unleashed a goon squad to literally hurt Americans and create fear, pain, disruption, and chaos. The purpose here is not law enforcement. It can't be law enforcement. When you're the one doing most of the crimes, it's not law enforcement. You're the Miami River cops, for Christ's sakes. Yes, thank you. Spread the word. Yeah, please. Like I said, I'll always keep my content free. I made that decision when I first got on Substack. If you'd like to subscribe, somebody subscribed to me. Really nice subscription today. I really appreciate that. That was cool. Couple of people subscribing and paying subscribing. That's wonderful. Okay. Um, but please, if you think it's helpful, please restack, share this content, send a link to a friend, and make them understand that when you're looking at this from a independent, center-ish viewpoint, you see things a lot clearer. Okay, because the red hat rubes, all they see is they think they've been told they're winning something. Because remember, they keep getting lied to. Oh, there's a $5,000 Jones check. There's a $2,000 dividend from all this money we're saving you. You didn't save any money. You spent more money last year. Somebody brought that up earlier. $2.4 trillion. That's one of the biggest years of expenditures we've had. You didn't save shit. You definitely didn't hand anybody a check other than Elon Musk. So yeah, please. I this is not an ego thing with me. I don't want to be an influencer. That's not my point here. Okay. I just like to read research. I'm very good at reading data. Um, I'm a data engineer and a hobbyist data scientist. I know how to plow through this. Plus, I have law enforcement experience. Law enforcement experience, a lot of even people in law enforcement don't have. I was both a military cop and a civilian cop. Okay. I knew a lot of military veterans in civilian police work. Very few of them were MPs. Out of the 56 people we had in our department, half of us were veterans. Only 3 of us were MPs. And yeah, 3 was MPs, 1 was Coast Guard. Because Coast Guards were more cops back then than a branch of military service. Like we treated them like cops, like another police department. They made arrests, they made warrant arrests, they pulled over boats and asked for backup, just like cops do, except when it's on the water. But yeah, please spread this, share it. We'll never ask anybody, especially a person who's struggling for any money. That's not my point here. It's not. I'm not here to think for you. I'm here to give you sets of information so you can put that into your bailiwick and make better decisions as a citizen. Okay? Because I think the biggest problem we have in this country is corporate influence of information, ideological influence of information, and the billionaires funding their crap. Okay. Because remember, all the big newspapers that used to be cool, Los Angeles Times, New York Times, Washington Post, all owned by billionaires now, and all have changed for the worse. That's what I was talking about with, finding good sources the other day. Those 3 are not good sources anymore. And I subscribed for many, many, many years to the Washington Post and the New York Times. Those were 2 papers I usually paid for every year, 20 years, 20 plus years. I will not read them anymore. I'll read the writers from those organizations who are on Substack and Blue Sky or on YouTube, but I won't pay money for those newspapers. I'm not going to fund a billionaire who's going to suppress the news they don't like, and they've already been caught doing that on all 3 of those papers. So all I'm trying to do here is give you a solid reference point with things that I honestly know or I honestly believe are true, and those things that are negatively affecting the ability of working people to live a good quality of life in America. You know, I grew up with peace and prosperity. That doesn't even seem to be a thing anymore. Now it's shut up, plebe, shut up, slave. You're under arrest, immigrant. This is horrible. So I'm just trying to throw some stuff out there, hopefully some very factual stuff, and tell you the conditions that sure other people are talking about, but they're definitely not talking about it on MSNBC or Fox News or on Washington Post right now. They're definitely not talking about it on OAN or Newsmax. So please, yes, share my material, my live sessions, my essays. Um, build a little information network of your own. Because if we just allow our older parents to like, I'm really glad I'm really close to my wife's parents. Have been ever since we've been married all these 38 years. Um, known them for about 40 years. Um, they're normies, so don't worry about them. They get placed from normal, independent or center space journalism. Nothing weird there. I don't know what I would do if I had a MAGA relative. Unfortunately, since MAGA started 10 years ago, I think I've only lost a couple of friends. The one that hurt, though, was my wife's friend forever and a day. I knew her dad. Her dad was another command sergeant major and a really good guy, really good soldier. Um, a half Vietnamese, half Swiss woman who decided to go whole deep end Nazi. And I'm like, the only reason they want you in their crowd is because you're a cute Vietnamese looking chick and they want you to pump out babies. Do you think you have a place in this political sphere as a brownish woman? You would be highly mistaken. And that sucked because we were friends for decades. So the impact to me personally and to my family has been pretty low, thankfully. Um, but the reason I'm sharing this information and speaking, being outspoken and also speaking very directly, um, is to help give people the tools and give them the sets of information they need to call bullshit bullshit. Okay? And all we get for the all we've gotten in the last 10 years with Trump is bullshit. Tariffs are paid by China. Bloomberg.com today. Study of Target stores reveal that U.S. customers pay 99.2% of the cost of all tariffs. No shit, Sherlock. But if they watch Fox News, if they're watching Benny Johnson on the internet or that fucking moron Tim Pool, they have all the wrong information. They actually believe that Alex, the ICU nurse, pulled a gun and attacked a Border Patrol agent, even though 5 videos show that's not what happened. But if they're watching a bad outlet, that's exactly what they think. So, yeah, when you talk to people and they're all worrying about their taxes and the national debt, tell them this thing. Now, about 13 trillion of the 37 trillion dollars is just Trump. The the debt was 90% less in the 80s before Ronald Reagan got elected. Or 80 before Ronald Reagan got elected. Okay. Our biggest causes to debt was never Social Security, was never food stamps. Was never making sure that a family that was struggling financially couldn't live indoors with Section 8 funding. It was caused by Reagan's policies, tax cuts, and gigantic military spending, multiple wars on the credit cards, bank bailouts, and 10 years of shitty fucking Trump policy. That's where almost all of the debt comes from. 36% of the debt is Trump's alone. And he told you he was saving you money, balancing the budget, and he lowered the debt. None of that is actually true. My work partner is MAGA. I'm sorry to hear that, Alex. That's terrible. He has a kind heart, and I've repeatedly made cracks. I repeatedly made cracks in the facade. He comes back the next day and repeats the same lies over and over because he's turned on Fox News. Yes, exactly. Exactly. That's what I'm talking about. Why did Kristi Noem run to the lectern to tell you Renee Good and Alex the nurse were domestic terrorists who did some wild terrorist organization stuff against ICE, even though completely 100% untrue? There's a psychological thing with humans. Usually the first narrative you hear is the narrative you believe and repeat. That's why in certain investigations we separate witnesses, because one witness could give a totally false narrative of the actions of the crime, the criminal, or the crime scene, or whatever, and you have other witnesses within earshot. They'll plant what he just said in their heads and make it their truth. It happens like that with some witnesses. So in certain cases where things could get, squirrely, yeah, you wanna separate people and you get their testimony, in another room or another side of the parking lot away from the other witnesses, because you just don't want them hearing a story and repeating a story, which is kind of very natural for a human mind. Now, autocracies, autocrats all over the world forever and a day, this is their method. Whatever just happened, go to the lectern and gaslight the fuck out of the situation, because the first narrative they hear is probably the narrative they're going to remember and believe. Propaganda science also shows you can come to believe what you think too. Yes. Yes. That's when brainwashing turns into the Moonies or Spawn Ranch, and it turns into brainwashing. And then you actually need to be deprogrammed. Now, the good news is there is a good news on the MAGA front. There's actually MAGA guys who figured it out for themselves and started support groups, and even I've heard of a couple of deprogramming groups for the people, like you're saying, Alex, who really drank the Flavor Aid. They drank a liter of grape Flavor Aid and asked for more. So yes. Okay. Great crowd tonight, by the way. You guys are doing great comments, great points. Um, Oh, there's a hyperlink here. Let me copy that so I can open that up in another tab. The link is join No Kings Coalition tomorrow, Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern for virtual training on exercising your rights in the time where federal agents are terrorizing our communities. That's a good project. I'm down with that. Okay. Film, 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 film. Get an app on your phone. I don't care what the frickin' app is. I don't care if it's Facebook live streaming, Substack live streaming, something that records to the cloud that doesn't end up on your phone, because the first thing they did after they murdered Alex was start beating the shit out of the witnesses and taking their phones and then arresting them and taking them to Whipple Detention Center. Why are you arresting witnesses? Witnesses are not arrested. I've never arrested a witness unless they gave me false information, a false identification, a false identification, or false testimony. I don't think any of those people did that. I think they were just tackled and dragged away. So the what we had proven out with Renee and Alex and Cesar, Julio Cesar, is cameras are actually a required citizen effort at this time. Just don't leave the video on your phone. Just don't record it and make an MP4 or an M4V file, wherever your phone records in. Don't make it a local file. Get that shit streaming out. Especially when you're downtown and you get great cellular reception. Now, I will also put in a little caveat here. If you're out in the middle of nowhere and you get stopped on some rural highway, just get it on disk, okay? Because there's organizations, even if they boot stomp your phone, we can get the disk out of it and forensically recover the files off the disk, even when the device itself is pretty fucked up. Burner phones, especially when you're going over a border, burner phones, I completely agree with. My colleagues now are using burner phones to go across the border. I'm telling my family and friends, take your banking apps off your phone when you go through customs, because they will ask you to open up apps. If you don't want them seeing private information like your banking material, take that app off your phone and put it back when you get back home. Or put it on when you get to Europe or Canada or wherever you're going, to Malaysia, whatever. Use it on Wi-Fi when you're there. But again, before you go back through customs, take that app off your phone. Delete it. And if you're in a group of people, everybody film. Everybody busts out a camera and start taking video. Why? Because the multi angles prove the case of murder. This was murder two with malice, both times with Renee and Alex. Okay. The videos are what's going to be the testament and the testimony to history. When Congress, it's not just for the courts, okay? It's for grand juries. It's for congressional and state house committees later on when they try to fix this shit post MAGA. Because I don't know how MAGA survives if China's not a threat. Because that's their whole being, is we're going to go to war with China because glorious wars. We say we have an anti-war president, but immediately pick multiple wars to get into and demand that we get into a war with China next week. Okay, that's not going to happen. Apparently, then you're going to take away the Second Amendment. Yeah, MAGA's about to collapse. Now it's going to be an ugly collapse. You know, this isn't going to end with like Trump leaving and going into exile like Idi Amin. And I wrote an essay. What are you all going to do when he goes full Idi Amin? Other than not wearing the sky blue military jacket with all the medals he gave himself, he's doing peace prizes, set the board of peace with all the dictators on it that he set up. They're going to give him another fake peace prize. His third one. Okay. So in fact, he has gone Veterans Against Trump. Last time I was on Instagram, they were on there. I haven't checked for them on Blue Sky. I know they're around. There's plenty of veterans who are against Trump. Unfortunately, there's some veterans who are for him, and they're the idiots. Like all these veterans who claim they were voting for the rule of law because Biden wouldn't release the Epstein files. That's not exactly the story. But now that we know we have the files, they're 2 million pages deep, plus tens of thousands of pictures and videos. Pictures and videos with adult men with naked and half naked teenage girls that obviously, if those ever went out, that pretty much proved the case through and through. Like, none of this is good. These degenerates started by getting massages from teenage girls at Mar-a-Lago and Epstein's pad. What the fuck are teenage girls giving massages to adult men for? Like, I love a massage. I'm injured. When I'm traveling, I love to get a massage. And I don't mind having a female massage therapist. I just want one that's trained on how to deal with people who are severely injured. And I've had a couple of really good ones, but they were all adult women in the room. Okay. There's no way I'm going into a room with a teenage girl for a fucking massage. You're either out of your fucking mind or you're a goddamn degenerate. One or the other. That is bad in my book. And every time I look at something, it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Massages, plural. Yes. Yes. That was a hobby. Yes. Yes, Kate. That cat. That's what I meant. Biden was unable because Ghislaine Maxwell was an in progress case. You can't release the evidence that's in front of the court. Yes, exactly. Okay. But what did the campaign of Trump tell us? We're going to release the Epstein files and we're going to show you how Bill Clinton and Bill Gates were the problem. Okay, fine. If Bubba Clinton or Bill Gates, who, by the way, I've met a couple of times, he's just as nerdy as you think he is. Very smart man, though. Had a cocktail with him at one holidays at a confab. I think it was down in Monterey. And I also met him in San Jose and San Francisco. Nice enough guy. But seriously, I don't care. I don't care if I like you or I like your business. I'm a big Windows guy, so been working on Windows for years. Know a lot about Windows. I used to do Linux and Cisco and Splunk and a whole bunch of other stuff. I got a bunch of technologies underneath my belt. But yeah, I'm pretty agnostic when it comes to technology, and I use Windows and Linux kind of half and half. Like all my servers downstairs on my hypervisor, like anything that has to do with data processing is always on Linux. Okay. Um, but I don't care if I'm a fan of Bill Gates or not, or whether or not I'm not a fan of Bill Clinton at all. But I don't care if I'm a fan or not. That's not the point. If they're in these Epstein files, any adult male who is diddling little girls needs to be fucking addressed through a criminal prosecution. A- Absolute minimum. And I literally do not care who it was. Oh yeah, that was Stansberry, the redheaded gal from where's she from? New Mexico? Yeah, she's a pip. I like her. Um, yeah, he stole Venezuelan oil, created a slush fund outside the U.S. Treasury, put it in Qatar, then handed the money to his biggest campaign donor, who's an oil tycoon. Yeah, that's what happened. Not to mention his Bitcoin is open corruption, open bribery. All these pardons, I have a suspicion I know how they're paying for the pardons. There was meme coin. Yeah, I heard that about Virginia Cat. Yeah, that disgusts me. It's one having teenagers work at the country club, at the pool, whatever, but this wasn't what's going on at Mar-a-Lago and at Jeffrey Epstein's pad. Not when I've seen pictures with both of them standing there with half-naked teenage girls. Like shit, when I was in my 20s, I couldn't even conceive. I was already married by then, but I couldn't even see dating somebody who couldn't go out and have a drink with me. So if you're not 21, I mean, I'll say hello and I'll be polite with you, but I'm not asking you out on a date. I literally do not care who's in those fucking files. Prosecute every single person in the file that we can develop evidence against and throw the fucking book at them. I don't care what political party they subscribe to. I do not care where they are in the political spectrum. I do not care if they're an executive president, former president, actor, celebrity. I don't care. Prosecute them all. And the fact that we're not is probably one of the worst criminal problems we've had in this country to date. Especially when right-wing influencers, this is why I think influencers suck, by the way. Right-wing influencers made a career out of accusing Hillary Clinton of running a pedo ring out of a basement of a pizza parlor in Washington, D.C., where the property where that actual pizzeria exists has no basement. A guy showed up with an AM-10, a 308 carbine, and started shooting rounds off in the ceiling, demanding to see the basement that did not exist. And again, I'm not a fan of the Clintons. I think both Bubba and Hillbot suck. Did I ever believe for a second these right-wing assholes telling me that Hillary Clinton is running a pedo ring? No, no. But literally anybody they can find evidence on, do them. Do them hard. But that's not going to happen under Dear Leader. Ghislaine Maxwell has a computer with internet access and a fucking puppy and custom order menus for dinner now. Given her offense as a serial criminal, she's not even allowed by regulation to be in the facility she's in. She's not just getting special treatment, she's getting golden treatment. Oh, Howard Stern is a gold mine for information about Trump because Howard's very rich. And probably before Trump's meme coin, he's probably more wealthy than Trump ever was. Howard Stern is wealthy, very wealthy. Um, and they did a lot of the same charities. Howard's been over his house for dinner with a bunch of other celebrities and like New York socialites and stuff, usually around charity and events and promotions and stuff like that. And Kat says Howard Stern, Trump was out of line about 18-year-old Lindsay Lohan and Paris Hilton, his own daughter Ivanka. I'd sleep with her. She wasn't my own daughter. Yeah, that famous interview. Yeah, it's disgusting. Well, it's like the same crap. Natalie Portman's first movie, The Professional, which she was brilliant in. The French actor that was with her in that film, just amazing. The film is a great. Gary Oldman as the gangster. Oh my god, that movie is so good. Um, People just couldn't appreciate. Degenerates started like perving on Natalie Portman, and she was a young teenager in that movie. Okay, and you know, looking at that young girl, she's super pretty. I'm sure she's going to grow up to be a beautiful woman. Um, and I mean that in a platonic way. But yeah, people perved over her as a little girl. That's just disgusting. And when you're a 50-year-old man and you want to go after an 18-year-old, I do not know what that's about. Even when I was a younger man, and late teens, early 20s, when I started to become sexual active, I always thought the most attractive woman was a 4-year-old good-looking woman. That's your sweet spot, gals. Yeah, this whole hunting little girls, it's gross. And it was gross to them. And it was the biggest evil in the universe. Groomers, groomers, groomers. How many times we had to listen to Laura Bopart and Marjorie Taylor Greene scream groomer? As soon as they found out Dear Leader, their daddy, was the groomer, groomers are cool. Let's get the biggest groomer we know about, Ghislaine Maxwell, special treatment in federal prison. And when they can show that the DOJ didn't do what they were supposed to, in fact, they undermined the prosecution of these pedophiles to protect people in power and people who are famous, people who are wealthy. That's another line of tort avenue that the victims are going to take against the taxpayer. They don't have an explicit duty to protect, but they do have an explicit duty not to submarine their own cases. And I think in many cases, that's why a lot of these things didn't happen when they should have. Like the plea agreement in Florida was ridiculous. They knew there were multiple suspects, not just Jeffrey Epstein. They signed a non-prosecution agreement as part of his plea deal to at least a half a dozen other people. They knew this was a criminal conspiracy with multiple subjects from day one with the local police. Now it's ballooned up to we have 2 million files and 30,000 pictures and videos and potentially dozens of suspects. And they're hiding the information that would identify their groomers. Figure that one out. So yeah, let's educate our friends and family on this issue. I think it's a good issue to talk about. That you are getting duped. They are not governing; they're lining their own pockets while keeping themselves out of the jail for being a pedophile. Okay, they're literally giving friends contracts in bribery schemes. None of this is ethical, moral. Half of it isn't even legal or constitutional, but they're doing it anyways. And guess what they're going to do at the end? They're going to hand you the bill. So when they don't rebuild that bridge that's falling down in your zip code, that's because the money got diverted to pay for the crime with Dear Leader Pornstuffer and his friends, the pedophile crew. When your rural hospital gets shut down in Wyoming, Kansas, Oklahoma, the money was diverted to pay off criminal pedos and their liabilities. Now, MAGA shouldn't be okay with that, but they're not. But our job is to go find those people who are registered to vote and they haven't voted in the last couple of cycles, or they're not registered to vote and they need to get their ass in gear. And then we need to inform them this is how you're getting screwed over. Cost of living sucks as it is. Now they're handing you the bill for the crimes they committed, and this isn't the first round of them doing that. You want to know why the middle class is poor and the working poor is devastated? Because they keep handing the bills away from the wealthy people who commit the fucking crimes in the first place. People should read up on that. People should be aware of that. And then they should vote for candidates who are going to fix some of this shit. Because the people in power now aren't going to fix shit. Okay? Be independent. Vote independent. Run for local office as an independent. Get to know your candidates in 2 or 3 issues that you know well, that you can literally ask cogent, complete, policy determining questions from a candidate. And do not let the candidate just whitewash the question. What is your fix for this major problem? Don't shine me on. If you shine me on, I'm going to go find somebody else to vote for. And in this midterm, we need to send an absolute message. Nobody should be voting for the party that MAGA took hostage. Nobody. I don't think I'll vote for another Republican for the rest of my life. I'll go anywhere else to find a candidate that's reasonable, that has a good idea at a solution. I cannot morally or ethically go forward and support a party that supported this shit and then turned around and handed us the bill. Okay. Will you guys enjoy your Sunday night? Until next time, please Think about it.